Here. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the session on the human machine at the MIT Better World Weekend. I'm Dan Huttenlocher, the inaugural dean of the Schwarzman College of Computing. I'd like to thank you all for being here today and for your generous support of the MIT Campaign for a Better World. The College of Computing was established during the campaign to address challenges and opportunities presented by computing AI, and campaign donors provided key foundational support to the establishment of the college. Our conversation this afternoon on the human machine focuses on human health, a key priority of the campaign. You have helped make possible the remarkable scientific and technological breakthroughs in human health that will be discussed today and that we at MIT will continue to pursue. We do this by bringing our strengths in the life sciences, social sciences, engineering, computing, humanities, management, and our tradition of aligning with hospitals and industry, especially the ones that are close by and easy for us to collaborate with on a daily basis, to address critical human health challenges. The role of the College of Computing is the infusion of computing and AI in almost every discipline across MIT, and health and scientific discovery in the health sciences area is no exception, where machine learning has recently been quite successful in producing systems that are able to reveal new discoveries. For example, at the Jameel Clinic in Machine Learning and Health, which has a mission focused on fundamental machine learning and health tied to clinical outcomes, researchers have developed new methods that substantially improve the process for discovering new antibiotics that are effective against drug-resistant bacteria, a particularly challenging problem. One of the examples you'll hear about today on the panel is about how MIT researchers worked with scientists at Janssen Research and Development, leveraging real-world data and applying AI and machine learning to help guide the company's research efforts into a potential vaccine. AI is just a part of the broad focus at MIT on bringing our signature strengths in education, research, and innovation to bear on improving human health. In this afternoon's conversation, you will hear several pieces of exciting research, and it promises to be an illuminating conversation. Our moderator is Angela Belcher. Angela is a biological materials engineer with expertise in the fields of biomaterials, biomolecular materials, organic and inorganic interfaces, and solid-state chemistry and devices. Her primary research focus is evolving new materials for energy, electronics, environment, and medicine. She has many accolades, but a couple of them quickly. She's a MacArthur Fellow and a member of the National Academy of Engineering, and as of this year, also the National Academy of Sciences, which is a particularly small select group of people who are in both of those academies, although she's not the only one in the room. She's received a number of awards for her work, and she's also founded 5 companies and holds 36 patents, at least as of the time this was written, and with the number pending, it may be bigger. Now for the panelists. Zhuanhe Zhao is a professor of mechanical engineering. He invents soft materials and human-machine interfaces to address grand challenges in global health and sustainability. Examples include tough bioadhesives that could replace sutures for closing wounds, and soft robots that could help neurosurgeons treat stroke patients faster, safer, and remotely. Liwei Cai is founding director of the Aging Brain Initiative and co-director of the Lana Center for Down Syndrome Research at MIT. She's a member of the National Academy of Medicine and a number of other prestigious academic societies. Her lab investigates disorders of memory and cognition, in particular neurodegenerative conditions such as Alzheimer's disease at scales ranging from the molecular and cellular to that of circuits and systems. Feng Zhang is a molecular biologist focused on improving human health. His work has played an integral role in the development of CRISPR-mediated genome editing, and he has discovered and engineered many other systems for therapeutic and diagnostic applications. He's been recognized by many awards for his seminal research contributions and is a member of the National Academy of Sciences and the National Academy of Medicine. And finally, Dimitris Bertsimas is an applied mathematician who helped develop a machine learning model that played a key role in the clinical trial process for the J&J COVID-19 vaccine. He's a member of the National Academy of Engineering and Informs Fellow, recipient of the von Neumann Theory Prize, Lancaster Prize, and Erlang Prize, among many other research and teaching awards. He is also quite involved on the commercial side, co-founder of 10 analytics companies, but also on the nonprofit side, 2 foundations. Angela, the floor is yours to kick off the discussion. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to welcome you here today in person. I'm so excited about this panel. I'm on the edge of my seat because these innovators we have in the room today are going to share with you their vision of the human-machine interface and just the future and, well, the current and the future of human health and what MIT is doing to impact human lives. So I'm very excited to be here. So we're going to start by talking about what is MIT doing to improve human health, and what are we doing to change how diseases impact our lives and how therapeutics are administered. And there's going to be 3 main topics we're going to talk about. It's the intersection of human bodies and technology and key achievements to positively impact human lives. And MIT's research, as you've seen that we're from very different departments and schools around campus, but we're brought together by this idea of really making a difference in human lives. And you're going to hear about how these innovators are looking at the research in the breakthroughs to change the course of medicine. And then third, the impact of MIT's campaign for a better world and how that's impacting human health across disciplines. So that's the big idea of what we're going to do today. We're going to start by asking kind of a big question. My first question I'm going to ask to each of you, I'm going to kind of go through the row and think about is, what is the human machine? What does that evoke in your mind? What does that mean to you? And then we're going to kind of drill down into each of our innovators' research and ideas and what they're doing to impact human health. So I'll start with the questions. Thank you all for being here. I'm just very excited to have you all in the same room at the same time, too. Okay, so when we think about the title of the panel, The Human Machine, it evokes the intersection of humans and technology, and its power and potential. So I wanted just to, in a few words, what does that mean to each of you, and then we'll go into the research you're doing in this area.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm truly thrilled to join this panel. In my opinion, this human machine is really about integrating or merging modern technology, such as sensors, robotics, all the way to neural technology, genetic technology, even artificial intelligence. This modern technology, some of them are developed not for human health initially, but eventually merge them or integrate them with human body. For both fundamental understanding and for addressing grand challenges in human health.
Li Wei, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, very well said, Shang-He. So I agree with you. So my vision, when I think about it, is how we can actually stimulate the brain, which in turn not just change the state of the brain, but actually modifies the conditions of the whole body. We know that the brain really controls your whole body. There are nerves innervating into all your organs, including your skins. So when you manipulate the brain, you have the opportunity to really improve the health of your entire body. So I'm really thinking of how we can best come up with methodologies and new technologies to non-invasively stimulate your brain and improve everyone's health.
That's great. Yeah. Fang, would you want to give your idea?
Yeah, it's great to be here and to be a part of this panel. So when I think about human machine, the human body is a machine. It's a very complicated machine with billions and billions of molecules in it. What is really exciting now is that we have entered into a new era where we are starting to understand how the human machine is built. We're understanding how there are different types of cells, how different cells have different molecules, and also more importantly, what can go wrong in these molecules to lead to disease. And so with that understanding, we have been working on, and also many other people in biology now are working on new technologies to be able to rectify errors in these machine parts. We can go and edit the DNA. We can go and modulate the way that different genes are turned on or turned off in the cell. And I think we're only at the beginning, but I think we're going to see more and more medicine leveraging these new discoveries.
Thank you. And Dimitris?
I'm also very glad to be here. First panel I personally attended in 2 years. So when I think machines, my background is I'm thinking computers. And there are two particular areas where I'm particularly excited. Number one, as you know, because we interact with the healthcare system, human doctors utilize a variety of information. They utilize scans when they do a diagnosis or they propose treatments. They utilize languages, reports, notes by attending physicians or nurses, genomic information, and they also utilize electronic records, the data that we use. Key aspect is that they utilize information, humans utilize information across a variety of settings, what I called multimodal data that are structured and unstructured. Machines, computers in this case, and artificial intelligence, in my view, provides a unique opportunity to unify these distinct inputs in ways that I think play to the strength of machines, as opposed to humans who have very different characteristics and advantages. That's number one. Number two, also computers have the following, in my opinion, opportunity. By and large, human health today, as it is administered by doctors in hospitals, in private practices, are by and large non-personalized. I'm not suggesting this 100% what I'm saying, but by and large. And I think the opportunity is there to utilizing the variety of data that I mentioned to personalize the treatment so that a cancer patient who ordinarily would be given a general purpose chemotherapy, person A would be given the same, person B, person C for similar treatments, will now have a higher chance of addressing these diseases in a personalized fashion. And machines, I think, offer promise, machines, meaning computer machines, to advance these areas.
So thank you all. So it was good to get your vision and view on that. And there's a lot of similarities, but then there's places that you branch off as well, which is absolutely fascinating and perfect. So next, what we're going to do, I'm going to ask the second question, and it's going to be about what you think is possible. What do you think is possible when you merge humans and technology? And what's your vision for what you could create? And how might that change how healthcare and treatment looks like today? And we're going to go in a particular order. We're going to start with Shan He, who's going to do larger scale, like the human body. And then Li Wei is going to do kind of a combination of the human body and organs to molecular. And Fang is going to do molecular. And then, Dimitris is going to do data, but then data as it relates to humans and populations of people. And so that's the order we're going to go in today. So what's your vision, and how do you think your vision can change the treatment of medicine in the future and in the far future? Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. I will use a few slides to show the possibility. If we may play the slide. Oh, very good. So this is one example of a human body and a machine. My job, one of the research tasks of my group is to merge humans and machines. I will use two examples. One is how to image internal organs of human body over days with wearable devices. The second one is, once you can image them, can we edit internal organs with cellular-sized robots? So these are the two questions. To answer the first one, so this is the way currently we do ultrasound in hospital. You go to a hospital, the clinician use a very thick ultrasound probe through a liquid gel layer to measure certain imaging of internal organs. It's short term, it's just a few seconds. We shrink the whole ultrasound machine to a small patch. You look at it here. So, and then stick this small patch to different locations of the body. So that's really merging this modern technology, sensors, with different location of the body. Then what are the possibilities? Here's one example, COVID, right? Really, we can real-time imaging of a COVID-19 patient's lung symptom at home. Instead of imaging those patients at hospital, we can have long-term continuous imaging of the lung of COVID patient at home. The top image is a healthy lung. For those patients, it's asymptomatic. You don't need to do treatment. Once we see this COVID symptom sets in, then so actually we need a borrow AI diagnosis. Then the hospital will send the patient a warning. At this time, the patient should go to hospital for treatment, and this is way before the blood oxygen of the patient getting low. So that's the potential impact this technology may make. The second one is the heart, right? Cardiovascular disease is #1 cause of global death. However, this electrical cardiography can only diagnose around 20% of heart attacks, right? We really need this kind of imaging, long-term real-time imaging of the heart to diagnose different types of heart diseases. Now we have this capability to continuously image the heart over daily activity and capture the moment once you have a chest pain, feel something uncomfortable, capture the moment and then send that image to hospitals, to AI programs for the next step diagnosis. The last one is for example muscle. We try to answer the question how much exercise is sufficient or too much. Our body don't know that, right? So it's sometimes we overdo, but now we have the capability of long-term imaging of the muscle, over daily activity, right? So then it will tell you exactly at the moment you should stop exercise. It's already reached the highest efficiency. As a Red Sox fan, I have to show this. So we see recent news, right? This Jim Paxton just injured his elbow. I really hope as a Red Sox fan, this kind of technology will soon, in 3 to 5 years, really benefit these athletes and benefit the general public, for real-time imaging of different components of the body over the long term. So that's one example. The other is about the editing. We invented robots. Again, robots we think is a big machines. We shrink the whole robots to the size of your hair, to like a thread. And then especially we focus on one challenge in healthcare, which is stroke. Stroke is globally #1 cause of long-term disability, #2 cause of death. However, most of the stroke patients cannot be treated timely because they are in rural area and the clinicians, those neurosurgeons, usually work in major medical centers in large cities. How to address this problem? We use this robot. So here is one example in collaboration with MGH, Mass General Hospital. So the neurosurgeons now are operating this robot remotely. We do this in both animal models and the phantom models. You can see we use this external guiding system to guide this hair-like robot to a desired location of the body. Here we target at an aneurysm, and then you can see we navigate this robot to the aneurysm, and then we deploy a conduit. This is a small microcatheter to the aneurysm. And then after that, we will use this metallic coils, platinum coils, to coil up this aneurysm to prevent the aneurysm from bursting. So this is just one example. And of course, AI robotics play big roles in facilitating this process of controlling the robot. So here you can see now eventually we deploy this metallic coil to coil up the aneurysm. The whole process is done remotely. So the patient may be in a rural area, a small hospital, and the clinician, neurosurgeon, can work in, for example, MGH, working in a major center. So that's that. I show you two examples. Then I will pass this probably to Li Hui. She will show more about the neuron, and then Feng show more about the genetic editing.
Thank you. That was a wonderful two examples, miniaturizing to interface with humans, and then even miniaturizing more to go in and make corrections. And fantastic. Thank you.
Great. So I'm Li Wei Cai, and my laboratory studies age-related neurodegenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's. So there are three major research areas in my lab. First, we look at large-scale brain circuit and systems to learn how intervention at this broad level, such as manipulating the natural brain rhythms or brain waves, can stimulate healthy activity in cells and in tissues within Alzheimer's disease brain. And to understand how the brain differs between health and disease, we work closely with computer scientists to do large-scale machine learning analysis at a very fine-grained level of how the various cell types carry out their genetic instructions. So by analyzing the big data of the different patterns, we can gain insight into how things can go wrong at the cellular and molecular level. Then in the laboratory, we will test the new hypotheses and also try out new ideas for intervention. Lastly, we combine patient-derived stem cell, genome editing, and tissue engineering to explore how genetic and environmental risk factors can impact the risk of developing neurodegenerative diseases, and also learn how certain individuals are more resilient to these diseases. So, so here I'm showing you an example of the brain's vasculature created from patient-derived stem cells in a dish. And we further manage to flow liquids and different materials into this vasculature in these blood vessels in the dish. So I think using this kind of system, we are getting closer to understand how risk factors impact the normal function of the blood vessels in the brain, but also really give us an opportunity to test the properties and efficacy of drugs that are actually customized for each individual patient. So I actually want to say a few more words about our approach of using non-invasive approach to stimulate the brain and to treat diseases. So you probably all heard of brain waves or brain rhythms. So when our nerve cells in the brain, known as neurons, they act in concert, then these brain waves are created. And there are many different frequencies of these waves. And a relatively fast frequency band, known as gamma, is associated with higher order brain function. And we and others have shown that in Alzheimer's disease mouse models and in certain patients, gamma is compromised. So we have been trying different approaches to boost gamma power in the brain, first in mice and later in human subjects. So I want to tell you about how we eventually figure out to use extremely non-invasive light and sound stimulation to boost gamma power. So here you can see a mouse is exposed to gamma light and sound for anywhere from minutes to hours. And this can boost gamma powers in many regions of the brain. And in Alzheimer's disease mice, we find that this stimulation can produce widespread neuroprotective effects, including reduction of Alzheimer's pathologies such as plaques and tangles, and improved learning and memory function. So recently, we really wanted to learn further why increased gamma power can have such widespread beneficial effects. And we learned that it can change the gene expression patterns and biochemical properties, not just in nerve cells, but also in other glial cell types to increase synaptic transmission and network connectivity. But what's even more fascinating is that we found that increased gamma power changes the blood vessels in the brain, as well as the so-called lymphatic system. So the systems are known to be important for waste clearance in the brain. So I'm showing you an example of a segment of the lymphatic vessel in the meninges of the brain. And in Alzheimer's disease mice, this meninges vessel is atrophied. But after light and sound stimulation, you can see the size of this vessel nearly doubled. And this really enhances waste clearance. So right now at MIT, we have assembled a team of physicians and scientists to bring this approach to human subjects. And we know that, after testing in a number of young and older people, that light and sound stimulation is extremely safe, and it can boost gamma power in many regions of the human brain, just like in mice. And our randomized controlled clinical trials in early stage Alzheimer's disease patients, even though very small, we already see significant results. We found that this approach can increase network connectivity, can slow down degeneration of the brain, and improve cognitive function. And remarkably, 2 other groups conducted similar clinical trials also produced very collaborative results. And the MIT spin-off company, Cognito Therapeutics, was granted the breakthrough device designation by the FDA last year. And they are now gearing to do phase 3 human trials in Alzheimer's patients. Here at MIT, we wanted to see the utility of this approach, whether it can be extended to, say, delay the onset of memory impairment, or in other diseases such as Parkinson's disease, Down syndrome, multiple sclerosis, and others. Thank you.
That's really, really exciting. And so I'll tell you about the molecular aspect of things. And so there is a book of life. And that book of life is the human genome. And that book has 3 billion letters in it. So one of the most exciting advances over the past couple of decades has been the completion of the human genome, and also our ability to sequence more and more human genomes. The first human genome was completed almost 20 years ago. And it was an international effort, costed hundreds of millions of dollars to complete. Today, we can sequence a human genome in a matter of a day or 2 for less than $1,000. And that trend is decreasing, or that cost is decreasing even faster. And so what that means is that we can now collect or map the books of many, many people. And we can compare these books and see what are the differences. Because some of these differences underlie how individuals may have different height, different hair color, those differences. But also, some of those differences underlie disease risk. So why do some the families have inherited psychiatric disease, schizophrenia or depression, why are certain lineages of people are immune to HIV infection. So these are different things that we can start to map by reading the Book of Life. So what my lab works on is developing genetic medicine to take advantage of the information that we're learning from these books of lives. And so if you think about genetic medicine, there are really two parts to it. There is the payload, which is the medicinal components that you're trying to deliver into the body. And then there's also the vehicle for delivering that payload into the right part of the body to be able to make these genetic intervention in the body. So both of these are really important. And so we have been drawing from nature to develop technologies for enabling both of these parts. And so one of the richest sources for biological invention is in the microbial world. There are billions and billions of bacteria that live around us, that live on us. And if you look at all of these different types of bacteria, they have evolved over tens or hundreds of millions of years, different molecules to allow them to survive in different environments. For example, there are bacteria that can live in very salty water. Other bacteria cannot live in that very salty water. And so that means those bacteria that can live in salty water have evolved mechanisms that protect them from the high salt concentration. And so if you look at biological diversity in the microbial world, you will find that there are many, many really powerful examples or systems that we can co-opt and use it to improve human health. So one example of this is a system called CRISPR. CRISPR, if you had a can of yogurt or a bowl of yogurt this morning, you have had CRISPR, because CRISPR is originally found in bacteria that are used to make yogurt. And they protect these bacteria from contamination or infection by viruses that invade bacteria. And so CRISPR is this immune system that protects bacteria from viruses, but you can borrow the components of a CRISPR system and introduce them into human cells to be able to find genetic mutations and be able to correct them. And so this is one example, but there are many others. Bacteria have also evolved needle-like structures that they use to inject either toxins or beneficial molecules to other bacterial cells. They kind of transfer these things back and forth to allow them to either survive or to diminish a specific population of bacteria. And so these needles, you can also take out the bacteria. You can reload them with things that are therapeutic. You can load CRISPRs into them and use these needles to then inject things into human cells. So these are just some examples of how we can borrow from nature. And so if you step back a little bit and think about genetic medicine as a platform or as an approach for treating disease, I think we're really at a very exciting start of realizing this whole wave of new medicine. Coupling genetic sequencing and mapping of how the Book of Life is interpreted by cells, and borrowing from nature, from other organisms, components that we can use to deliver therapeutics into the right cells, in the right part of the body, maybe combining with the robots that are being developed. I think this is really a very exciting future. And I think there's a lot of work at MIT and also at other places, but that is something that I'm super excited about.
Thank you. I can see so many connections between the human and machines there, from the human machine and the cellular machines to the machines that had to be developed for sequencing to exist. So that was really fantastic. And Dimitris, you're.
Yeah, so the question is the vision for the future. So I would like to use 3 examples from my experience that represent the present, and I think you could see the future as well. First example, I work closely with hospitals. So in a particular case where I work with the Hartford Hospital system, it's about 2,000 beds in Connecticut, the largest system in Connecticut. And we have developed, my group at MIT of very young talented students and myself, we have created a system that gets data on an online basis for all patients and makes predictions regarding when these patients will be released from the hospital, whether they will go to ICU, whether if they are in ICU, whether they are leaving ICU, whether they will develop various morbidities and whether the probability of mortality increases and so forth in a way that is reasonably explainable. Namely, a human doctor can at least understand why the algorithms say what they say. So this system has been implemented at Hartford Hospital and some other hospitals in the system. And what we have found, we have now been using it for about a year, is that, first of all, it's reasonably accurate. The doctors start believing it because they understand it. And also it has some interesting consequences that, to be honest, I did not expect. Here's an example. So perhaps one of the most deadly events that can happen in a hospital is to develop sepsis. It's a deadly disease, and it's not easily detectable. It takes a while to detect. What we have observed is because we, on a daily basis, for every patient, we predict the probability of mortality. So if the probability of mortality, we have observed that for a particular patient, the probability of mortality starts increasing slightly, not very strongly, but increasing over time. And when the algorithm pointed to the physicians, because we have flags and so forth, they start looking more closely, and they have detected that the patient has developed sepsis, but it was earlier, so the patient was actually saved in this case. Of course, we did not develop the method for detecting sepsis. But this is where computers, in this case, can have outcomes for human health that are obviously in the positive direction. That's my first example, how to utilize data holistically to improve hospital care. The second is a methodology we have developed in my group called HAIM, Holistic AI for Medicine, the Jewish Work for Life, I'm told. And what this methodology does, as I mentioned in my initial remarks, it utilizes multimodal data. This is exactly what humans use. And we have applied it to a variety of problems in medicine. And my second example comes from the application of HAIM in hospitals. So patients, particularly patients that have elevated disease, are linked with online data. You have every 5 seconds, you have vitals, you have information, cardiograms on a regular basis. You have also computer vision, not at this frequency, but maybe once a day. So we have all this information on an online basis. And what we try to do is we try to make a prediction whether or not the patient faces a very significant health crisis in the next half a minute. The hospital, in this case the Hartford Hospital, and we have started another collaboration at the University of Massachusetts in Worcester, in which when somebody detects that there is, typically humans or nurses, detect that there is a significant elevation in such a risk, rapid response teams, what they call RED teams, are deployed. They have 2 such teams, and hopefully they arrive in time to save the patient. What we have found is that because we now utilize data sources much more holistically, our response rate has decreased. So now we have found examples. We are not perfect, don't take me wrong, it's still in the future. But we use it on an experimental basis. But half a minute can save somebody's life because the key challenge there, and this is the key challenge for me and for the world, in fact, is how doctors trust AI. Because the methods that we use primarily are methods that are not very interpretable by experts, not by doctors. So as a result, my effort has been, and I think this is an effort that needs attention in the community, to increase the understanding of these methods. That's the second example. The third and final comes from my personal experience. I lost my mother to diabetes. And when I was a child, actually all my mother's family have diabetes. And I have observed that the treatment that every one member of my family has utilized is very different. And the outcomes have been very different. So from an early age, it was daily experience for me to observe that how different treatments should be more personalized to the person, maybe their character, the culture, as well as the science. So what we have developed a method for personalized treatment of diabetes. Not too surprising given the previous experience that I told you. And what we have found is that one size doesn't fit all. We have been collaborating with doctors at various hospitals where they utilize, we have data. To give you a concrete example of this personalization that it really affected me. So, there was a patient, an elderly woman, who was prescribed insulin. Yet her diabetes levels, instead of declining, were increasing. This was over a long time, 6-7 years. So the algorithm, when they looked into this, they actually made something that is not common for human doctors to prescribe oral medication. Because what the algorithm detected is that even though correctly this is where the right prescription, the patient was not following it. So as a result, the compliance, so it basically developed a compromise in which you give them perhaps something perhaps less appropriate, but for this particular patient, very appropriate. Good outcomes happen. Because an oral medication is easy to take. Insulin, you have to have measurements, you have to, it's a more complicated story. This is a simple example. There are many more. But my view is that, and also oncology is another example, that viewing that diseases are really personalized will change medicine. And in the next set of questions, we'll be talking about what MIT can do. I will wait my turn to mention some of the things that we can do as an institution, but more generally as a society.
Thank you. Well, I hope that gives you an idea of, sorry. The innovation that each of our panelists are doing to make an impact in human life and human health. It's just amazing. So I'm going to go a little off script. I'll probably get in trouble. But I want to go to, we're starting to get some specific questions. And if you can, I think, add the questions here. If you can't, then we'll probably figure out how to do that. Let me take a couple of questions that are on that came in first, because I want to answer some of the specific questions, and then we're going to back out and say, what can MIT, what are we doing right, which sounds like a lot, and what can we even be doing more to make an impact? But here's some particular questions, and this one I think is to Li Wei. Are there particular characteristics identified for light and sound simulation? I'm not sure if that's simulation or stimulation or both. Yeah. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So basically, what we do is to, for our human subjects stimulation, we have LED light. It's many hundreds of LED lights. And then we, use very simple program to control these lights to flash at this relatively fast gamma frequency. And similarly, we also use the sound click, again, program to play at the gamma frequency. So we use both light and sound in sync, sort of as an exposure to people. Usually we do the so-called, chronic paradigm of exposure, 1 hour per day for, a few months. And then we evaluate these people, especially in people with, early stage Alzheimer's disease. We have many things that we can measure all the way from how their brain, from regions and to region connect to each other, the size of their brain, because we know that during aging, and especially in neurodegenerative diseases, the brain, reduces in volume and the ventricle size expands. So we can use imaging method non-invasively to evaluate the size of their brain. And obviously, we can administer all kinds of tests to evaluate their cognition and other well-beings.
Great, thank you. So keep the questions coming in through this link up here. I have one following for you. So, gene editing, I think about it as mostly related to, disease, just, stopping disease or correcting a disease. But there's been a lot of developments recently for diagnostics. And so can you expand on that a little bit? And so it seems like it has so many applications beyond just treating in situ in a cell or in a human for human disease.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that question. So CRISPR is where a lot of the genome editing technologies came from. But CRISPR, there are many, many different types. So some CRISPRs are very useful. If you borrow the components, you can use them for gene editing. But there are other types of CRISPR systems that have utility for diagnostics applications. And so, for example, there's one particular type of CRISPR that has a protein inside called Cas13. And Cas13 has the ability to recognize a RNA signature, like a piece of RNA from a coronavirus. And then once it recognizes the RNA, then it can go and send off a flashlight or flash signal so that you know that the virus has been found. And so, at the start of the pandemic, we started to develop this additional CRISPR system to turn it into a diagnostic. And this is one of the really exciting things about being at MIT, is that you can bring in expertise from people who know how to do the biochemistry, but also people who know how to build devices, engineering. So since the start of the pandemic, we have been putting together a system where we can have the chemistry and have a simple device that people can use in people's homes. And then eventually we worked with the local entrepreneurial community to then found a tiny biotech startup company to then apply for FDA EUA authorization for use for diagnostics. So now it's on the desk of the FDA commissioner pending review. So hopefully you'll see some CRISPR-based diagnostics in the very near future.
Thank you. Shanhi, I'm going to give you this next question, but then other people can jump in on it as well. How far are we away from robots always just being in your body and not needing a doctor at a distance anymore, but being auto-activated? You seem like you're on the path there.
Thank you so much for the question. I think if you define robot broadly, the Apple Watch on your wrist is a certain type of robot. Currently can record ECG signal, right? That's for sensing capability. Insulin pump in the body is another type of robot. Supply insulin automatically, to the body. So these are robots we have seen. For the robot I discussed, for example, for treatment of stroke, or for treatment or deliver certain therapeutics to a specific location of the body, I would say if there is a necessity to make such a robot to be compatible with the body over the long term, that's definitely is a possibility. And it's I would say probably within a decade we'll see such a robot navigate in the body to do certain treatment of the body. For the imaging part, for this ultrasound imaging, long-term continuous ultrasound imaging, we believe that technology, especially ultrasound imaging technology, is relatively mature. The current bottleneck actually is data analysis, because we generate huge amount of data. How do you collaborate with clinicians to analyze those time series continuous data? We believe that within 5 to 10 years will be available. I hope it as soon as possible. We are working with startup companies under the support of MIT, really to translate this technology into realistic products that you can couple with the body over the long term.
Okay, thank you. So AI recommendations are getting smarter. What about our ability to interpret and explain AI recommendations? Is that getting better, and what's the trend? More or fewer recommendations to explain or understand? What about different types of AI recommendations? Do you want to take that, Dimitris?
Yeah, this is something I have is close and personal, because I have observed, since I work with doctors, that the ability of AI to be understood, especially on life and death, on important life and death decisions, is first order. So the question is critical, in my opinion. Now, where are we? So I think improvements have been made, but we are not there yet. The most spectacular success in the last, I'd say, decade or so has been the success of what is called deep learning neural networks that can understand images and make predictions or language and so forth. But unfortunately, understanding deeply what is going on is not there. I read an article today, actually, that we can understand the race of machines can understand the race of a person from an X-ray, but we don't understand why. That is the mechanism of that. This is today's article in the New York Times. So clearly, there's room to grow there, and I have, in my group anyway, we have tried to develop methods that are far more interpretable, and this had made a difference. To give you a concrete example, how much they have made a difference, I have a close friend, he's the director of trauma at Mass General, his name is George Velmachos. George and I know each other for 30 years, close friends. I have always tried, given my interest in medicine, to engage him. And always he politely avoided me in a friendly way. So then I told him, George, we have developed something that I think you will understand. And I spent 10 minutes explaining, the particulars are not so relevant, but it was much more explainable. So George says, all right, let's have a meeting. He brought the group. We have written papers. We have developed AI algorithms that now are utilized in the trauma center, in the emergency department. They are similar in performance with other methods, but the key characteristic is understand. They understand. Doctors understand what they say. They might not agree, but at least they have the option. They can understand it. So I think there is an exciting future there, but there is room to grow.
That's great. That leads into this question that I think that all of us here have interactions with clinical translation and patients. And the question is, MIT leads in these health areas, but has no medical school. Are there benefits to this situation? And how do we connect with patients? I might just answer that a little bit myself, is that hospitals love working with MIT. And it's usually that more people want to collaborate in the hospitals, I found, than don't. And so it's how do you pick the collaborations? But I spent 3 days in ORs watching ovarian cancer surgery, and in the pre-rounds, the physicians would say, and this is the engineer from MIT to the patients, and they're going to be in the OR with you, and they were like excited to have a MIT engineer in there, and yeah, I found it very responsive and easy to collaborate. But I was going to see what the rest of the panel thinks in terms of, do we need a medical school? We don't have a medical school. Is it a disadvantage or is it an advantage?
I think a very successful story is the Coke here, right? I mean, it's a cancer center. You guys are doing all kinds of, exciting, cutting edge kind of research, but we don't have a medical school here. But, just through the collaboration among scientists and engineers and, computer scientists, I think that this is where the innovation happens, right? So I personally don't think that, without a medical school really is a hindrance for MIT to continue to innovate. And I also feel that this is a very fertile environment for further aging research. I personally feel that aging is really the biggest health crisis facing our society. In a few years in this country, there are going to be more people over 65 than people under the age of 14. And then there are a lot of age-related diseases, especially neurological disorders. There's absolutely no treatment. So I think this is an area where I feel MIT can really make tremendous contributions.
We'll take one more related to this. Do you want to follow up, Dimitri?
So if you look at the education of medicine, it hasn't really changed from the 1920s when the Johns Hopkins environment has started a certain level of education. If you look at how doctors are being educated, there is very little from the revolution that happened in recent years in AI, machine learning, and so forth. So I feel that there is a significant opportunity for us as an institution to develop a different type of medical training, what I call digital medicine. Digital medicine is in its very beginning in some institutions, but very beginning. It is my view that in the years to come, digital medicine, which is in some ways a union of what we say here, will be a first order effect. It will not be in the fringes and in top research institutions like ours, but it will be much more in the mainstream. So as a result, I believe MIT as an institution, and the Schwarzman College, given our dean is here, could play a leading role in that, is to potentially develop a new educational program in which you engage young people, even doctors perhaps. MIT is not well equipped to train medical students in the traditional sense, but we are very well equipped to train them in this digital medicine business. Ourselves and many others in the Institute have a core capability in that. I have a little bit of experience. I actually, because I believe in this, I have given classes to physicians in institutions I collaborate, roughly 100 at a time. And I have found there is a significant appetite. These are, from ranges in ages from the 30s to the 50s, in that range. There is a significant appetite. And most importantly, I believe this education aspect opens the door for research, incorporating research, because now the art of the feasible is known to them. It's not a foreign, I believe we have a fantastic opportunity in that. I have been pursuing it individually, but of course one person can only do little. As an institution, I think there is a significant opportunity to in my opinion, revolutionize education. But after all, although we are a research institution, one of our primary missions is to educate young people, and I would say of the types that exceptional young people we have here. So I think that's a fantastic opportunity for us. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. So unfortunately, we're running out of time. I'm just going to read a couple of the questions, and if people are here in the audience that ask these questions, maybe there can be a few-minute follow-up. One was, as a bald man, I'm excited for CRISPR to get back my long hair. What are the thoughts on how we get to the scale developments in existing bodies for gene changes? Is it via molecular needles or like robots or something else? So it's a good collaboration for the two of you. And the second question is, do we have the capability to use ultrasound or light using the genome book and combine nanotechnology? Can we move or remove the additional 21st chromosome to positively impact Down syndrome in vitro? So that's another good, very good question. And then another one, which is pretty important, is how do you feel about some of the public disdain or lack of understanding of science, and how are you and your labs working to close the gap between your amazing science and public understanding? And that's an absolutely critical question. And I think one of the things that all of us feel as faculty at MIT is that this is a public service. We're here to make the world a better place and to serve the public through both our research, innovation, our teaching, but our outreach to the public. And I think that it's hard to really go into that in much more detail, but I think it's done through many different levels at the Institute, and I'm happy to point people in the direction. But I think all of us care so deeply about that. And then one question about how do you get collaboration solutions? How do collaborations start? I think it's the students, but I don't know if other people have ideas there. But it's MIT, you bump into each other, getting coffee and at seminars, but a lot of it's student-driven as well. Maybe I'll give each person one line on how can MIT community support this work, or what can MIT be doing to advance health and human lives? Is it possible? 2 sentences. We'll start in this direction.
Given what I said, I would say new education in digital medicine, and particular investment to our very talented and exceptional young people we have with fellowships in particular areas and so forth. And I think that will go a long way.
I think one of the things that could be really, really nice is to increase more interdisciplinary interaction. The winters in Boston are very cold, so people are only working in their own buildings. But I think more bombardment, more spontaneous, those cafeteria dialogues can, I think, really accelerate a lot of the work that's happening here, and also allow more creative ideas to emerge.
So I think, all the, difficult human diseases, they are very difficult to treat. It's not just about one molecule or one gene. So I think what it takes is for people from the different disciplines to work together, science, engineering, big data, AI, machine learning. So I think that if, there are funding to seed the collaboration for people to work together and to really take risk, I think that we eventually can find something that's spectacular.
I agree. So if I can summarize, so probably more support of our students and encourage them to work in a more collaborative way, really cross disciplines of different departments, even schools, encourage those students to work together. If we can create such opportunities, that would be great. It's not only for MIT, it's for the world. It's for a better world, I think.
Exactly. That's a great way to end. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for supporting this panel and just supporting us at MIT. It's such a wonderful community to be a part of, and we're so happy that you're sharing this community with us today. And I feel better personally just knowing that these innovators are here solving some of the toughest problems. And have a wonderful rest of the afternoon.